then that's what I would advise people. I'd be like, man, if you can do it without working, more power to you. But at the same time, the only way that it worked for me, because I was on the flight schedule every day, 6 days a week. So the only way it worked was to study, 6 to 8 hours a day. And so that worked for me because, just because I was able to not work. But some people may not be able to study for 8 hours a day. I couldn't do that now. It would drive me crazy. So, and so it just kind of depends. And if you have a good job that's paying a good job and you're allowed to keep going to school and things like that, like I said, every situation is different, but I wouldn't, like I used to when I knew it all, I would tell people, don't work, just focus on your school. But now I think every situation is different. I think if you do have a job and you can pay off, or you can pay as you go some of it, that's definitely beneficial. Because it's a big check to write every month if you borrow that much, So I don't know if that answers your question or not, kind of roundabout, but.
We'll talk later.
But no, I mean, if it works, definitely do it. Definitely work if you can. My wife was taking care of kids, and so when she couldn't work, I've seen situations where it worked out where, the spouse can work while you go to school or whatever. Just depends on your situation. And that's, some people get into that situation where the money is so overwhelming that they don't want to continue. And, maybe that's when, if your dream is to fly, maybe that's when the military becomes an option. If you ran out of options, then, start looking. But guaranteed that there's a job out there for every one of you. And if you want to fly, and if that's what you want to do, then there's a way to get there. It just depends on how you do it. So, yeah.
Where's home base for you now? Is it there in Salt Lake?
Yeah, so
somewhere like Moab to do a search and rescue?
Yeah, so we actually have 2 helicopters for our base. You know how helicopters go, they're not always up. We kind of plan on 1 helicopter all the time, but it's out of Salt Lake. We've played with the idea. We do a lot of work down south, especially late summer, doing like marijuana eradication, stuff like that. And so they've toyed with the idea of putting a helicopter maybe down in at Monticello Airport or St. George, something like that. So maybe in the future. But
A-Star?
yeah, so we've got 2 A-Stars.
What's been your favorite flies?
Hands down the A-Star. I've so down at Papillon, I flew the A-Star. Got really comfortable with it. Flew an EC-130, Bell 222, Bell 407, and of course the Robinsons. I actually don't have any R44 time. We had R22 instrument trainers, and so so I've ridden in an R44 once, but I've never flown it. But yeah, the A-Star has been my favorite, just because it's such a good, solid, dependable aircraft, and it's able to do just about anything we needed to do. I've put it through the ringer the last couple months. So.
Did you work or know the people that saved Aaron Nelson?
Well, Terry Mercer, the guy that I replaced, was on that flight. So.
We have that photo. It cycles on our testing center. So
Yeah.
Everybody here.
Yeah. Well, that was that rescue I was talking about earlier. We were joking with that pilot because our guy, lasted longer with less. He didn't have to cut off his arm, but he had, 146 hours instead of 126 or whatever it was. So, yeah, pretty rewarding when you get something like that.
How about networking? What's your thoughts on networking, keeping good ties out there with other pilots?
Yeah, very important. When I was trying to get back here, then I knew everybody at the time. Jim Wisecup, who was over Air Med, Ron Fergie, who was the chief pilot up in Pocatello, Port Fly. Eric and Will, I forget their last names, but they were the guys that were in charge of Idaho Falls. I knew everybody, call them up, talk to them. I went to run for a UHP pilot up in Pocatello. You know, I was like at 1,500 hours, and I was at his house. You know, talking to him, and you know, talking about a job. Went and visited the base. Same thing at Air Med. I went there a couple times. I applied there at 2,000 hours, and I interviewed, and then, you know, I got beat out by somebody that was transferring from inside, but I stayed in touch. And so then when it came open again, he knew that I was up in Casper, and he said, "Hey, we got a position. Do you want it?" And so then, you know, it's definitely an important thing. So
How do you build those relations or contacts?
just bug them. just go and you know, make visits. You know, if you have somewhere that you like to work, everybody. I can't say everybody because there's a few people out there that aren't too nice, but most people, you know, are very, very nice. So, be really good to go visit. You just call them and just be like, "Hey, I'm in town, helicopter pilot. I'd like to fly EMS," or, you know, that's how I got in, like up in Pocatello. I was like, "Hey, I grew up in Soda Springs. I really want to fly around here. Just, can I come take a look at your operation?" I went down there, and he talked to me for like 3 hours and got to know me, and you know, I stayed in touch with email, and so it's just you know, network and go out and meet the people and be annoying and talk to them and stuff like that. But yeah, and if any of you guys want to come down at the hangar, take a look at our operation, a little bit what we do and stuff like that, I'll leave some of my cards. You can give me a call. So.
You guys freezing?
Yeah.
And I don't know if your wife wants to be put on the spot, but we could ask her if she wants to say a couple of things. Do you mind saying a couple of advice to the wives or anything? Yeah, advice to the wives.
Like you were saying, we moved a ton, and I grew up in Orem, and I moved as far as Logan my whole entire life, and it was terrifying to me to move to Phoenix or to Las Vegas, these big, huge places with all these people. I don't think I even drove in Phoenix ever, because it was just so scary for me. But I've learned a ton, and I think I've grown up a lot. Just being able to see all these different people. I've made friends all over the place that we still keep in touch with, and I love it. Just to be able to see even the different things that I can do, and I don't know. I've just learned a lot about me, and I think I tell my brothers this, and his brothers and sisters too. When you get married, it's so great to just move away, just go live somewhere else, not by your family, and that way you can really grow together. What? Well, you know, that way you can grow together and be each other's best friends instead of always calling your mom or always talking to your sister or your brother or whoever. That way you can grow together, and it was really, really good for us. And then even the last year and a half, I guess, especially since he started working for the patrol, and he'd go down to Sandy and stay overnight all week long, and then come home on the weekends, just because it was so busy down there. And anyway, so he'd be gone all week long, and then he'd come home on the weekends sometimes, and then we'd kind of go through that whole thing. And that was 4 or 5 months of that, and I remember a couple years ago that he'd show up late for dinner or whatever, and I'd get all mad and like, "How could you do this to me?" kind of thing, you know. You got to be able to kind of roll with it a little bit, and just be very, very flexible. And you know what? I think that I don't know. Now that I'm a lot more easygoing about things, it doesn't bother me as much anymore, and I can deal with it. And he is a lot more fun when he comes home, and I don't have to be all defensive, and he doesn't either. So it's good for us both to just, be a little bit more relaxed. He's working hard for you, kind of thing. Flight school was long. I bet you guys know that, right? It's long, but it's so worth it. And it's so fun to be able to have a husband that comes home. And he called me the other day. Well, it's probably a secret, but he's supposed to call the major whenever they go out on the flight. And I like to know where he's going so that if anyway, I get kind of worried about him sometimes, and I want to know where he's at. So if there's some helicopter crash, I know that it's not my husband that's in it. And so I kept getting on him about that when he worked for Air Med, and so he's got me on his network, or what is it?
So like we do like when I call our major, I just call his voicemail, and we have like a voicemail distribution list. So I added her to it, so she gets all my voicemails.
So I get all these great messages that are like, "Hey, Major, just left to go do this or whatever. You know, I've got this pilot, I've got this observer, we're on this. You know, I love it. It's fabulous." But I got this message the other day. It's like, "Hey, Major, I'm out with the FBI. We're looking for this stolen stuff down here," and he just sounded so happy. Ridiculous. You know, just like this little kid that's just playing the coolest game ever. He just loves it. And I called him later. I'm like, "You know, you really shouldn't sound so happy. It's not very professional." He's talking to the major of the highway patrol. But anyway, I love it that I've got a husband that loves his job so much. He told me the other day that he loves me as much as his job. So I think it's pretty cool. So, anyway, do you guys have any questions? I don't know. You guys are all good, right?
How do you handle being kind of like a single parent a lot of the time?
I go to school almost for the day.
That's true. That's true. We have a lot of parties. So, like if he's gone and I miss him, so it's hard for me to deal with. So I'm like, "Well, guys, Daddy's been gone this weekend. Let's have a pizza party with your friends or whatever." So we just try to stay busy. And we like to make him cards, or we like to have parties, or, you know, just different things for him when he comes home. It's like, "Hey, we're glad we're back, you're back," kind of thing. Just, you know, instead of thinking, "Oh, I'm here all by myself," it's like, "Wow, look how cool Daddy is," kind of thing. So.
And just as like a side note, she's been, you know, very supportive. And if you just look at it from like a spouse's point of view, the job I have right now is the worst. Because, you know, I get called out in the middle of the night, wake her up at 3 o'clock in the morning to leave, and then I might not be home for 2 or 3 days. You know, so you never know what's going to happen. I head down to work and be like, "Oh yeah, we got this and this and this and this planned for tonight," and she's a big planner, loves to plan and know exactly what's going to happen. But it doesn't work anymore, and so she's been able to adapt and adjust, and you know, just know that, you know, even though we have a plan for tonight, I may get down, you know, to southern Utah and be there for a couple days on a search or something, you know, so it changes all the time. And so, you know, like, thinking about that, like, yeah, it's not very much fun for her, but, you know, she's been doing a good job.
You don't know, if you're always looking for the things that aren't very good or the bad parts of things, you're always going to be able to find it. If you can turn it into something positive, and you're so set. You're ready. So.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys so much for coming out. We got you guys a little gift. Got a little bumper sticker we want to see on the back of your A-Star. And some Mountain Ridge swag. So appreciate you guys coming, and it's been awesome, you know, to have you come. So thanks. Feel free to come up here anytime to the hangar. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming out, and for your A-Star next time.
Yeah.
We tried to talk him into it, but
I would have loved to do that, but
we don't pay enough taxes.
all of our whole budget is determined by the legislature. So since they just got done in session, they trimmed our budget a little bit. So they're like, if it's not life-saving, don't do it. Hopefully that'll loosen up here in a little bit. But there's a little stack of my business cards if you want to give those to whoever. But.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to enjoy the rest. There's some more food up for you guys, and you guys can ask them personal questions if you want. But maybe, I don't know. But yeah, thanks again, guys, for coming up. It was awesome. It was perfect.